Good morning or good afternoon or good evening if you're watching this on the replay. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm Duncan and I'm here to talk to you today about salience bias. See, I talk about cognitive biases every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. And if you want to find out more about what that means and what they're all about, just head to my YouTube channel and you'll see all of the previous recordings. Hi, Kat Rawson. Thanks for joining me here at 9 a.m. Rather than PM, as I accidentally initially scheduled this one for. So today's bias that we're looking at is the salience bias or salience effect. Morning, Jess. Thanks for tuning in. Salience bias is a really common one, and it can impact us in a number of different ways. Hey, Higgs. It's the tendency to give more attention. By the way, as I describe this, it's going to sound kind of like, well, duh. But it's the tendency to give more attention to things that stand out, that are more remarkable, and therefore pay less attention to things that are unremarkable. Gee, you really needed a video to tell you that people are going to pay more attention to stuff that stands out to them, right? But to put that in a bit more context, good morning, Alison Mead. And no, not 8 a.m. It is absolutely 9 a.m. this week. I've not accidentally gone live an hour early. But if you want to see the face of someone who suddenly realizes in the middle of a live video that they're a whole hour ahead of themselves, tune into last week's cognitive bias video. Good morning, Mr. Scotch. I haven't seen you in a while, darling. How are you doing? I hope you and that little sprog thing that makes noises at you and demands your attention are doing well. Yes. So anyway, it's the tendency to give more attention to more prominent or emotionally striking items. So, for example, when shopping, you might have, let's imagine a marketplace, if you will. Do you remember going out to those things? And you've got one stall that's selling completely natural, organic, perfectly lovely stuff that's scientifically proven, and a perfectly plain person standing there selling them. Minimal packaging, so there's nothing really striking that stands out in that respect. And then at the stall next door, you've got someone selling magic pills that guarantee to get you the results that you need. You're absolutely going to notice the magic pills far more, because it stands out, and the branding that will be used will be very much focused on emoting that response that goes, yeah, that's something I want, something I need. And that's going to stand out to you far more. But it's not just true in shopping, it's true in general. So for example, if I was out and about somewhere filming this video and there was something happening and moving in the background, despite the fact that you're here, I would think, to tune in to watch me, even if it's just to watch me mess up, because that's entertaining. That's the reason you're here. Objectively, that's more important to you in the moment. Or in general, that's why you're here. That's what you've tuned in for. But something going on and happening in the background is far more likely to actually draw your attention, because that's remarkable. That's not what you're here for. It's different. It stands out. And so that's going to draw your attention away. You know, when you're trying to really focus on something and then there's a squirrel outside the window and you want to know what he's up to. This is all part of that sort of salience bias. So something that has an effect and an impact on you, particularly if it's an emotional one, that stands out to you, is going to demand your attention. Your attention is going to be drawn there more. So how do you combat that? Why is this useful to know, and what can you do about it? So Jess says, this makes sense. A bit like in kickboxing, people want to learn the more flashy kicks, yes, but dedicating the fundamentals, jabs, cross, and roundhouse, can actually be more effective in becoming a champion. But the jumping, spinning kicks, they look cool, right? So that's what everyone thinks of because of martial arts film and cinematography. Absolutely. So the flashy stuff, that looks good, that stands out more, it gets exciting, that draws your attention. Just imagine being James Chisholm, being that remarkable, you'd just constantly be distracted by yourself. That's a beautiful comment. I love it, James. So an example of this, if you will, which is it's kind of a version of, it's a separate bias to an extent, which I'll probably do a video on separately another time, but it's relevant to this and gives you a good understanding of it. If I were to talk about different kinds of death. Yeah, because that's always a happy thing to talk about early in the morning. Not early, but in the morning. So which do you think is more likely to occur? Or how frequently, how often do you think someone will die from a tornado? What are the chances? Let me know in the comments. What are the chances of someone dying from a tornado? What's the probability of being hit by that, as it were? Let me know in the comments. And then also, what is the probability of I don't know, a shark attack, being killed by a shark? How often do you think that happens? Do you think that's more or less than the tornado? And then finally, how about dying of an asthma attack? Do you think that happens more or less? Is that more or less likely than the others? Jess says that I am her salience bias at the moment. Do you know what? At least you're allowing yourself to be distracted by something beautiful. No, something informative, hopefully, in this video. John has bugger all to say. So I'm not seeing anything in the comments. So John, quite rightly, because he's a very sensible, logical guy, says less likely. Samantha says more likely. John says much, much higher. Obviously, these comments are coming in slightly after I've asked the question. So yes, you're far more likely to die of an asthma attack. But if I were to present you with those different scenarios and asked people to guess what the probability is, what the chance is, people are likely to overestimate the chance of a tornado death or a shark attack or something like this, and underestimate the chance of an asthma attack. You put the two together and you go, well, an asthma attack's far more likely, because that's perfectly logical. But when in isolation from each other, you ask people, and again, this is generally, and research has been done that supports this, it's not me just winging it and making it up, people are going to estimate those things quite wildly in the opposite direction. So they'll think it's more likely that you'll be killed by a tornado than will actually happen, and you'll think it's less likely that someone will die from an asthma attack than is actually likely. And that's because an asthma attack's not all that exciting, is it? But a tornado or a shark attack, they become really vivid, really emotive, unless you obviously someone or you yourself have struggled with asthma in a big way. Of course, that's going to have a more emotive resonation with you. So that's slightly different. So the more dramatic, the more the estimation. Yes, the more dramatic it is, the more emotionally vivid it becomes, the more likely the chances are that people on the whole will be likely to overestimate the tendency of that happening. It's just another example of how the thing that stands out, the thing that resonates with us emotionally especially, we put more focus onto. So we kind of want to believe that that's going to happen more in a way, because we're looking for things that stand out to us. And it's largely evolved from us needing to be on the lookout and ready to notice things that stand out, because if a predator was approaching us, we would want to see them and would want them to stand out to us. So we'd want that to distract us from making a fire or eating our food or whatever it might be. So it's really important. So it's a really useful bias in that respect. The problem is, in day-to-day life now, what tends to happen is it just distracts us from the stuff we really want to and ought to be getting on with. So how can you control for it? Well, there's a whole range of different ways that you can improve this. The first one is to be aware of it. So be aware of when you get distracted from whatever task it is that you've got at hand. And rather than beat yourself up for that distraction, which is a common response, notice it, acknowledge it, and celebrate the fact that you can then practice refocusing, because actually each time you notice a distraction and refocus, you're improving your ability to focus overall. So that's a really good thing. You can also use meditation, hypnosis, things like this are really good for improving your focus. Relax Club, #buy my stuff, can really help you improve your focus. But really that awareness and bringing your attention back to where you want it to be is a really key part of it. And as with any bias, and you'll see this if you've watched my other videos, knowing about it, understanding it, helps you to control for it and allow for it. It doesn't mean that it magically won't affect you anymore. Even the person who understands biases the most, I'm not saying I understand them the most, but I understand them pretty well. I spend a lot of my time talking about them, as you can see. That doesn't mean I'm any less susceptible to them. But it does tend to mean that I'm slightly more likely to notice them if I'm looking out for them and if I'm aware of them. The other thing is that, of course, we all think we're less biased than we really are. So, everything I just said is clearly wrong. So that's it. That's what salience bias is all about. That's how how it can impact us, how we can work around it. Another thing to consider, of course, is if you do run a business or have something to sell or want to grab people's attention, and this isn't really news, right? But you need to stand out. You need to do something that grabs attention and stands out. Now, when I say grabs attention, if people are scrolling through their Facebook newsfeed, everyone's trying to grab attention. So just being bright and bold and loud isn't necessarily going to work anymore because people have become very numb to that. So actually, it's about doing something that is different to what everyone else is doing something that stands out. That's going to resonate much more. That's going to grab people's attention much more. That's going to play into this bias and help you to benefit from it as well. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope that's given you a good understanding. Yeah, James Chisholm, absolutely. Dressing in a purple unicorn outfit will help you stand out and get noticed. So I look forward to seeing your pictures of that being shared all over the internet. If only I knew someone who had a photo of James Chisholm dressed that way. Watch this space if you want to see a picture of James Chisholm dressed like a dinosaur. Unicorn, purple unicorn. Anyway, when I get to the point where I'm waffling about James Chisholm in the comments, it's time for me to bring the video to an end. Thanks everyone for watching. See you again, same time, actually on time at 9 o'clock, not an hour earlier, 8 o'clock again, next week, where I'll be talking about another bias. Who knows which one? Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll catch you soon. Bye for now.